Go ahead. Turn it up. It's the Record Machine Show with your host, Jimmy Howe.
The kids used to dig the rock and roll, but I was like music in a hole. So much junk, it's what we hear. What happened to the sound we held so dear? What happened to? What happened? What happened to the rock and roll? What do you hear? What do you? What is there for us to cheer? Rock and roll is noise. Rock and roll is boys. Rock and roll is girls. Rock and roll was thrills. Rock and roll was noise. Rock and roll was boys. Rock and roll was girls. Rock and roll was thrills. We used to go. We used to go to $5 shows in the basement or local bar. Play that guitar. Tickets cost $100. What do they think? We'll rent a tux. $100. Man, that sucks. When we were kids, we loved rock and roll. But what I hear now, hey, it's got no soul. It sounds perfect, made by a machine, not like the rock and roll. When I was 13, what happened to? What happened? What happened to the rock and roll? What do you hear? What do you? What is there for us to cheer? Rock and roll was noise. Rock and roll was boys. Rock and roll was girls. Rock and roll was thrills. Rock and roll was noise. Rock and roll was boys. Rock and roll is girls. Rock and roll is thrills. Rock and roll is noise. Rock and roll is boys. Rock and roll is girls. Rock and roll is thrills. Rock and roll is noise. Rock and roll is boys. Rock and roll is girls. Rock and roll is thrills. What happened to the rock and roll?
Rob Moss and Skin Tight Skin. What happened to the rock and roll? I love that tune. It's off his brand new release titled Records, available right now on bandcamp.com. And we have Rob on the line. Let's bring him in.
Hello, Jim.
How you doing, Rob?
Pretty swell. How about you?
Pretty good. You're in Boston?
I am.
How's the weather there today?
It turned out pretty nice at the end. I actually got out for a walked around a reservoir in some woods not far from us, and enjoyed some sunshine.
Nice.
And then it got a little cloudy again, but not raining.
It's been cool today, but it's real windy. I guess we're getting...
Well, how's the storm treated you?
It's not bad here. I'm in South Carolina, so we probably got a little bit of the wind left over from the storm in Florida, I guess. But no rain or anything like that. It was clear the whole day. So what have you been up to, man? It's been the last time we spoke was about 2 years ago on the air.
That's right. Well, in that time, I wrote a bunch of songs and recorded them and reached out to a whole lot of guest musicians, lead guitarists mostly, as well as another lead singer to do a duet with. And it's a long process, takes a long time, not just writing songs, but the recording. And when we are working with so many guest musicians, there's a different lead guitarist in every song. There's a lot of wrangling involved, coordinating. So you
did
much of that.
You did one single at a time, and then You got to the end, and now you have a brand new album titled Records. Can you talk about the record a little bit?
Sure. Well, when I put out the previous album, which was called Now with More Rockets, I noticed another band, and I don't remember who it was, but what they were doing was they would release one single each month, and once they had them all out, they put them out as an album. I said, what a great idea, because it enables keep the album in just focus one song at a time, and it just adds to the longevity. Because it's sort of funny. It's like, back in the early days of rock and roll, it was all singles. There were no albums.
Right.
And now it's almost mainly because very few people buy vinyl, and not that many people buy CDs either. People either buy digital downloads or they stream.
Right.
And with internet radio, it's like we're back to the future in a way.
Yeah.
With this kind of singles type business. So I decided on this album I would do the same thing. So even though I had many of them ready to go, long before, I would, put one out each month. It was the last Sunday of every month. Mm-hmm. That was my schedule. So all the various DJs and other people who follow my music, were aware of when they would release, and it created a good cadence. And with the last one out in August, and then September came around, and I put out this album, Records.
Very cool. How did you arrive at the title, Records?
Well, Records was, to me, when I was a kid, Records was all what it was about. It was, I would come home and I would put on my records. Friends would come over. We would listen to records. We would go to the record store and we would buy records. That's how we consumed the music. Mm-hmm. There wasn't, when I was younger, radio for the most part was not all that interesting. To me, it was going to independent record stores and buying independent released albums, whether there was music from the U.S. or from Canada, Europe, Australia, anywhere. And that's how I got them. It was all through records. So I wanted to call this album Records.
Cool title. Now, the last time we spoke, you were in the process of moving into a new home, or waiting to move in a new home. And you had said all your stuff was in storage. Did you get all your records out of storage now?
They are. They're all out of storage.
That's cool. Have you been playing them?
Somewhat, although I actually need to get a new turntable. Unfortunately, that didn't survive. Yeah, well, I was already it was already on its way out before we did the move, so I ended up just chucking it. It was it had its day, and it was just no longer functioning. And so it was okay, time to get a new one, but I haven't done that yet.
So how's the new house? Is everything going good?
Yeah, we're in a great place outside of Boston. It's like 30 minutes north, depending on traffic, which can mean an hour. And the area around here, like I said, there's a lot of wooded area. There's trails, and there's deer coming around, and tons of rabbits. Unfortunately, to try to grow vegetables around here would be very difficult. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, enjoying it very much.
Nice. Now, you had mentioned a few moments ago about having some guest players on this record. How do you approach the process of selecting and working with guest artists or collaborators on your music, and what qualities do you look for in a collaborator? Oh,
well, once I come up with a song, and I get the song, and I have sort of what I call like the basic tracks, which would be, rhythm guitars, bass, drums, vocals. And then I was just sort of thinking what kind of lead guitar sound would serve the song best, and call up people, either people I know or old friends or friends of friends, mm-hmm. and ask them if they're interested. I don't tell them necessarily, I'm calling you about this song because I want you to do this, but I know in the back of my mind, this is where they tend to go. And it's pretty rare where they'll record something and I come back and say, hey, could you approach it a different way? I try to let them, they surprise me more often than not. They come up with things I would not have thought of. And that's really been a great way to make music.
Now, Tom McNally is on this record too, right?
Yeah, Tom is a bass player. He's also doing some backing vocals and plays organ on a song. He discovered my music when I put out my first album. He's a fan of Nels Cline, and Nels played on lead guitar on one of my songs on my first album. And Nels went out after it was released and mentioned on social media about the album. And Tom, who lives in Canada, Oakville, outside Ontario, heard it, bought my album, and we just started getting in touch with each other, contacting. And one point, I forget when it was, he said, if you ever need, help on a song, I know, he knew I had a bass player. I was working with Dwight, who did the first two albums. He said, but, I'm a bass player, here's songs, you can listen to what I'm doing. And as it turned out, Dwight was really busy on this last album. He was in another band. He's got other things going on. So I called up Tom and I said, hey, remember when you mentioned you want to play on one of my albums? Well, here it is. So that's what happened with Tom. And then Dwight, he's still involved. He did some background vocals on a couple of songs on this album.
Very cool. Let's talk about some songs. This podcast will feature two of them. What Happened to Rock and Roll and I Got Lots of Problems. What's the story behind the songs? Okay.
Well, I Got Lots of Problems is about people frequently blame their problems on others. And that's what the song is about. Someone who's in complete denial, blaming all their problems, and they carry them around. And, that's where that is. There's a lot of people who fit that description. Mm-hmm. So it just seemed an interesting topic to write about. And then as far as what happened to the rock and roll, it's sort of, how do I say this delicately? There is a lot of great music being made now. But if you listen to what's on commercial radio, you do not hear it. And that's what I'm referring to. And of course, the expense of going to a concert. Someone reviewed the album and they really did not like this song in terms of the lyrics. They liked the music, but they felt that how could I say there's no good music happening today? And my point is, it's a song. You have to exaggerate in a song, otherwise it's like it doesn't make any sense. And I think most people realize I'm referring to what is commercial top 40 type music in terms of what happened to the rock and roll. So that's where that goes. But it's interesting when you put music out, the responses you get. I mean, I send out my music to a number of different music websites and so forth, and I got a response back from one, and the editor of this website said, "Where are the women?" And I replied to her, said, I've asked so many female lead guitarists over the years to play on my songs, and not one has ever said yes. And she said, name some. And back, this is all through text, the wonderful medium of text messaging. So I said, tell you what, I'll do better. I'll email you. I'll make copies of all sorts of correspondence going back years, and you could see for yourself. And I made copies, screen grabs of emails, of text messages, of Instagram messages, me reaching out to all these women, some well-known, some lesser well-known. Mm-hmm. And all of them put me off. Not one was interested in doing it for whatever reason. And I respect that. They don't have to play on my songs. I'm not forcing them, for heaven's sakes. But it's funny. So I sent it to her. And she never really replied. She never acknowledged it. She never apologized.
Wow.
So it's funny how people react. They just see one thing, they hear one thing, and they make big assumptions.
Yeah.
But, it's just very funny with this because I've asked many guys to play lead guitar, and did have all of them said yes? Of course not. But I've never been ghosted by any guys. They've always replied. They've always, explained, why they can or cannot play right now. Maybe it's a timing issue. Mm-hmm. One replied, he was a little vague, And I only discovered much later that he was battling cancer. I had no idea. And he died. But, you know, it's you know, when you get in touch with people, you never really know where they're coming from or what's going on in their lives. And it's the same when you make an album. You know, people make assumptions about how you made it and why you made it and what your intentions were and what a song means. And frequently, you know, their interpretation is nowhere near what I meant. But that's life.
Right. And there is a female on this record. I mean,
yes,
what's she
of
complaining
course.
about? Track 4, The World is a Playground. Jen D'Angora is co-lead vocals, right?
Correct. We did a duet. And Martha Hall and I, who was the original singer in the Slicky Boys, did a duet on my previous album. Reason, well, she was just hasty and she didn't look. She just saw that, you know, there was lots of guys noted here, and she did not pick up on it, and you know, decided to accuse me of sexism instead.
Obviously, didn't listen to the whole record. I mean,
no, she listened to anything. I think she just looked at credits and just saw lots of guys' names and said, you know, I have a problem.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites, track 4. And I also, I love track 11. That's the one we just talked about. And we Just Don't Know is great. I mean, the whole album is great. I mean, but like I said, you know, I do have a few favorites. But my question to you is, which song on this release really resonates with you personally and why?
Oh, geez. A lot of them in different ways. They all mean different things to me. I mean, Basement Party, you know, it's a joke song,
right?
But sort of making fun of, you know, the sort of, you know, guys. And I remember, you know, I graduated high school in 1981, which kind of put me in high school into the, you know, the 70s and middle school. And I, you know, was around in, you know, schools where they would be, you know, parents are out of town, we're going to have a party and we're going to try to get a keg, or we're going to try to find a way to get at least some beer in some form.
Yep.
And people go to all this trouble and stuff like that. And oftentimes they wouldn't even pan out. And it was just, you know, funny to make a song about that, you know, that's on one level. But, you know, obviously what happened to the rock and roll isn't, you know, that reaches me on a different one. And then things like You and Time, which is, you know, a song about priorities and, you know, relationships. And that's a song that I would not have written back in, you know, when I first started songwriting. It was 1979, into early 80s. And I certainly could not have written a song like that back then. Now I'm 61. I can write a song like that. And I can write a song like Basement Party. So.
Right. Everybody can relate to that song. Basement Party, definitely. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, we used to go to a different, like, basement party like every other weekend, you know?
Yeah.
And we would stand out, and there was this one guy. He wasn't homeless, but he was a little off, you know what I mean? But he was an adult. And, you know, we'd throw him a few bucks to go in the store and buy a beer, and he would walk it out to the car and put it in the trunk, because we were only, you know, like 18 at the time. And, you know, the law when I was that age was 21 to buy beer. So, but he would go in the store and pick us up beer and then put it in the car. And then we would have our little basement party, you know, listen to music and stuff like that. It was, you know, I think everybody did that back in the day, right?
Sure.
You know.
Well, I had a bad experience with Guinness Stout at a basement party around that time. It was not pretty. Although I've since come to enjoy stouts and other type of dark beers. Although I do not drink very much because I don't have the metabolism for it. I just fall asleep.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think as we get older too, our bodies don't digest the alcohol like it did when we were younger too. You know. So
right. So the drink, it should be reversed. You should be able to drink when you're younger and not drink when you're older.
Right. I don't drink that much either.
It interferes with your sleep, especially when you're older. So, yeah.
Which song was the most challenging to write and record, and why?
I don't really have a great answer for that question for you. It's a good question. I guess the ones that are most challenging are the ones you don't hear because I wasn't able to, make them work.
Okay.
So I think that's.
You didn't have any song where
that.
you had to go back and change things several times because it just wasn't, up to par. You know what I mean?
Well, the ones like that just never made it that far, I think. I mean, certain things like what happened to the rock and roll, I did some revising on lyrics from the time I first wrote it to by the time I recorded vocals. Same with what else? Oh, I Got Lots of Problems, had some literally I think there was like a line literally that I changed as I was recording it. Because as I was reading the lyrics, during the recording process, it suddenly dawned on me, what's the word? Oh, and it's a subtle change, but it just gave it a nice little twist, where the line is, I got lots of problems, and we go from town to town, and later on that line repeats, but instead of saying it the exact same way, I say, I got lots of problems, and we're heading to your town. So it's like, great, here's this guy who's got all these problems, and which has been fine because this guy is out somewhere in the ether with their problems. But now they're sort of like, hey, I'm coming to you and I'm going to, spread my problems to your town. So, it's a little subtle change, but it kind of gives the song a different dimension.
Cool. Now you got 12 tracks on this release, right?
Correct.
How did you decide on the sequence of the tracks? Is that important to you?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I sort of, move things around and around many times to try to figure out what's the right flow. And I knew I wanted to start with We Just Don't Know and also bookend with We Just Don't Dub, which is like a dub mix of We Just Don't Know, which is kind of an homage in a way to Generation X's Ready, Steady, Go, and also The Magnificent by The Professionals, which they do a dub version of that song as well. So I knew I wanted those two songs to be the first and last. And then it was a matter of sort of finding out, in terms of everything from subject matter to tempo and so forth. That sort of went into, how can I kind of vary it in such a way that it creates interest. Now, and that's part of how, when I was, when we were kids, when we listened to albums, we would start with side A,
right.
Start with the first song, play it through, flip the record over, start again.
Right.
So, having songs in that way is very important to me. And that's how I listen to music as much as I can.
Yeah, I listened to the album probably about 4 or 5 times since I downloaded. I think I listened to it this week probably twice already. I listened to it on the way home, and it flows great. Like from the first song to the end.
Oh, great.
So you did a good job on that sequence, Now I noticed the album cover is basically similar to the last one. You just changed the colors now. Is that something that you're going to keep doing? Like the next album, you're going to use the same picture and just change the colors, or it's just...
Well, it's not the exact same picture. That was from the same photo session that my son took the photos.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, if you look at the two side by side, you'll see they're not the same, but they're treated very similar.
Yeah, they're
different
similar.
Color scheme.
Right.
That was trying to figure out, in terms of how to make it so that it feels like it's part of the same family, but at the same time, different enough. So, in fact, originally I thought of doing it again in red, and Jason Farrell, who did the art direction, said, "No, let's try blue and some other colors." So
yeah,
we did a series of different colors, and that's the one. And when you look at them side by side, I think it's really striking.
Yeah, now that you're saying it, because I just pulled up your Bandcamp page and I see the Now and More Rockets album cover right next to this one.
Yep.
And it is different. You're right. It's just it's almost it's kind of similar, but it's not
exactly. So it feels like a campaign,
right?
That way, when people see it, they know right away. Oh, this is the next Rob Moss and Skin Tight Skin album. So
yeah,
to me, it made a really a way of sort of branding,
right?
For lack of better words. So
Yeah, maybe you
There
should
you
keep
go.
it going and just do like different poses, but it's like similar, like layout. The same font and stuff like that. It looks pretty cool.
I don't know if there's going to be another one after this, to be in all honesty.
Oh, you don't know if you're going to do another record?
Not like this.
Okay.
I'm interested. I want to keep making music, but I don't know if I want to keep doing it in this format. As Rob Moss and Skin Tight Skin. I want to start trying to do different types of collaborations with other people in different ways. And even if it comes down to, the thing that I love most is songwriting and then recording. So even if I write some songs for some other bands to record, to me, that would actually be a real interesting opportunity going forward, to be able to hear how other people completely interpret the song. I mean, there's a band in France called Shake Some, and they're going to record one of the songs on this new album.
Nice.
And they're going to do it. I don't know what it's going to sound like. They're more of a power pop band.
Okay.
And I expect them to do it in a different way, so that if you hear the two songs side by side, it's not going to sound like a cover of my song. They're going to make it their own and do it the way they would do it. But use the chords, use the same lyrics and so forth. So I'm excited to hear what they make of it.
Nice. Now, the last time we spoke, I think you had mentioned that you didn't really have much interest in, going out and doing shows. Do you still feel the same way? You're not interested?
Yeah, playing live. I mean, it's very difficult or a challenge, should I say, to try to put together a band at this point in my life, at least for me.
Right.
There's just a lot of other competing priorities in life. So it takes, writing songs and recording takes, a lot of commitment, and putting a real working band together, well, that just even ups the ante that much more. So it's very hard. And the other part of it is I have some tinnitus. So playing live can be not so pleasant at times. So, even going to shows, I got some better earplugs, which make going to shows much more pleasant in the moment. I can hear, because the earplugs I used to use, they would help save my ears, but it was so hard to actually hear the songs that it was like not very fun.
Wow.
The pair I have now is much better. I can hear, but I still get, I come out like the next day, I still get that mainly in my left ear. And even, sometimes just, I can listen to music just at normal levels, just in the house, and sometimes it will trigger it. So,
wow.
So, I have to be very selective when I go to shows.
Right.
And therefore playing live myself becomes that much more difficult.
Gotcha. Now, do you plan on shooting or putting together a music video for any of the singles?
Nah, I've done some in the past where I've used different footage and edited it. And in all honesty, it's very time consuming. It's fun to do in a way. But I found I'll just say, the return on investment, for lack of better terms, just isn't there. So people enjoy the song on YouTube, but it'd be, nice if they would, buy the album or the digital download. And it's just, the idea of, videos was, oh yeah, people would discover your music and buy your music. But in reality, it doesn't really work out that way, at least for me. Pretty rarely. For me, it's much more word of mouth and opportunities like this. I tried as an experiment. I put Now With More Rockets on Spotify and some other streaming platforms. And I won't do it with this album. I don't recommend it. I think using Bandcamp is a much better way to distribute music.
Yeah, I like that.
That's where I'm at. Yeah. I buy most of the music I buy today is on that site, and I support other independent bands that are truly independent because, $10 here, $12 there, $1 for a download song. It adds up and it helps other bands keep going. I mean, I lose money every time I make music, and most of the, when I do get someone, buys an album, it's not going to repay for the cost of mixing time and stuff like that. But what I do is I go out and buy other people's music with it on Bandcamp. So I sort of, keep the money flowing in that way. So it goes to other musicians and other bands.
Now, is this release going to be on vinyl as well?
No, the cost of that and the amount of lead time and so forth. And I've had people contact me and they say they only buy vinyl. And I'm thinking, oh, well, that's very nice of you, because do you know how much it costs? Vinyl is very expensive to buy. Yeah. So that's a real commitment. Unless you're pressing, thousands, I don't know how many, I don't know. What does Taylor Swift press in a release or something like that? The cost per unit certainly comes down. But when you're doing, pressing a 500 or 1,000 or what have you, it's very expensive. And then shipping has become really expensive. I mean, now shipping just a CD in the United States is like just under $6. A guy in New Zealand bought my CD, and the shipping was over like just under $22 to ship a CD from the U.S. to New Zealand. It's like, even just going to Canada is expensive.
Wow.
So yeah, it's hard. So vinyl, and then just you get breakage and things like that. So no vinyl.
So you're selling.
I'd love to do vinyl, but I just can't.
So you're selling physical copies of CDs?
Yeah, so people can go on Bandcamp and they can either buy the digital download version, or they can buy the compact disc for either records, the new album, or now with more Rockets. We've come back to rock and roll. The first album I put out, which was in 2020, there's no more CDs for that one. That is sold out. There'll be no more CDs, but people can buy the digital download version.
Nice.
So yeah, people can buy CDs that way.
So you've put out 3 releases so far?
3 releases, as with this sort of format where I write the songs, I'm playing rhythm guitar and singing lead vocals, and having a different lead guitarist play on every song, which is I haven't totaled it up, but that's a lot of different lead guitar players. And
definitely,
I've been fortunate to get some really amazing players on these albums, people who've been at it for years, people who are, so it's people who are in bands that I admire. So it's been great.
What's the one thing you want the fans to know about you?
I guess, what do they know about me? I think of myself as a songwriter. And I don't mean that in the way of like, some guy with an acoustic guitar, James Taylor or something like that, singer-songwriter. I'm trying to write sort of what I think of as rock and roll, sort of proto-punk inspired songs. And most of my songs are under 3 minutes. Occasionally I go over it. And to me, it's like a poem where it's like, how can you distill this idea, whether it's a serious idea or a silly idea, in a song in a very short way, and make it memorable and have hooks in the music. And I love lead guitar, which, when I was much younger, I would listen to, like Deep Purple and Scorpions and things like that, Judas Priest. Mm-hmm. And if more so, and I also listened to fusion, some like progressive rock and jazz fusion. And I was just listening to something, was it yesterday? A friend of mine, we're talking about this progressive rock band from the Washington, D.C. area called Happy the Man. Nice. And I haven't thought of them since probably 1979 or something like that. And I went and listened to one of their songs on YouTube just to find it. And it's just this self-indulgent, just different time signatures flashing around. And it just goes on with solos. It's like, what's the point? There is no point, unless it's just the point is technical proficiency, but with not much soul. So when I bring on a lead guitar player, I want them to play solos and riffs and things like that, but I give them very short segments to do it in. It's like, here, come down, lay it in, do it here, add to the song, give it some grit, give it some feel, vitality. I think lead guitar is such an important part of making a song into the song that you know it as. If you hear just the basic tracks without lead guitar, you're missing so much. So to me, it's such an important instrument and part of a song. But when it becomes so self-indulgent, then it takes over the song and makes it into something that's, to me, is not enjoyable to listen to.
Where can the listeners go to learn more about you?
I guess the best place is just go to Bandcamp. If they go into bandcamp.com and then just type in the search bar in that magnifying glass, type Rob Moss, or type Rob Moss and Skin Tight Skin, either one will bring it up, and they can find my music there.
Awesome. Now, is there anything you'd like to mention that we didn't talk about tonight?
Let's see. Well, what do you do to relax and to focus?
Me?
Yeah.
I like to read.
Read that helps you. So let's say you read. What do you read?
I could read anything. I read autobiographies. I read stuff in the news.
Sure.
Books.
So when you let's say you read for, I don't know, half an hour, 2 hours at a time, or whatever it is, or literally, if you're just jumping around and just press for time, it might be 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
When you finish reading, where do your thoughts go? And are you able to sort of, like maybe you're working on a problem or something like that took focus, and then by moving away from it and reading it, something else, does it allow you to come back to that problem or whatever you were thinking about earlier and come up with new insight or a new approach?
Yeah, because I felt like I cleared my mind. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
whatever was blocking my thoughts to complete what I was trying to do, I put that to the side, and then I read for a little while, or, maybe I wrote some notes for my podcast or whatever. And then once I got finished reading or writing my notes or whatever, and I cleared my mind, then I was able to go back and complete what I was having an issue with before. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Do you find that to be the same thing with you? Like, if, you're distracted by something, you try to do something that you enjoy?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of things I'll do. I mean, one is really sounds simple, but can be really difficult. And it's just literally focusing on breathing through your nose, the inhale, and the exhale.
Right.
And literally focusing and thinking only about that. And it sounds easy, but to do it for a period of time, it's so hard to not have other thoughts coming in. I mean, the other thing, like, for instance, if I go for a walk, around the lake near us, there's so much great natural sounds, whether it's the water lapping against, the rocks. There's all sorts of different birds out here. Occasionally I'll hear deer, running through the forest, squirrels and other such. Mm-hmm. I try as best I can when I'm out there to leave everything else, all the other crap that's going on in my life, put it away. Just listen to all these wonderful sounds out here. And I'll do that for a while. And then suddenly I'll get an earworm of a song will pop into my head, and I literally cannot get the song out. And it's like, I got to stop it, because there's great natural, wonderful sounds that I can't get at home. Right. I can go, when I get home, I can go put on that song I had the earworm on if I want to enjoy that song. But no, it forces itself into my head. Yeah. So it's a challenge, but doing that and working that out helps, I think, so you can deal with other things in life.
Right. I like to write too. I like to write stuff. Like the other day, I actually wrote a review for an album. I've never done that before, and I wrote one for a friend of mine, and I posted it on Facebook. He seemed to like it, but I've never done it before, because I always wondered, if I post something, that's my opinion, because I've noticed when you do stuff like that a lot, you get a lot of trolls where they just jump in and they try to bash what you write. You know what I mean? And
sure.
So I was like, I never really got into doing it, but I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do it. And I wrote it, and then I posted it. And I'm proud of it. I've never done it before, but I think it came out pretty good. So,
cool.
Maybe I'll write another one, We'll see.
Everyone does. Everyone has their first one. Everyone writes their first review if they're a reviewer. Everyone writes their first song if they're a songwriter.
Yeah.
But everyone starts somewhere. And the people who aren't, don't.
Maybe I'll do one on your record.
Why not?
And then I'll send it over to you, and you could...
yeah, please do. I'd love to see it.
And then tell me what you think of it.
Cool. Yeah, most certainly.
Yeah, because I've listened to, like I said, probably a half a dozen times already, the record. Like you said, all the songs are pretty much under 3 minutes, so I have an hour car ride. I'm pretty much starting the record over again by the time I get to where I'm going every day. So what else is going on with you? What do you got planned for the rest of the year? Anything good?
Hopefully do some traveling. Not exactly sure when and where, but my wife and I try to as much as we can. I'll probably start. I have a couple sort of songs in progress,
Mm-hmm.
I'll take a look at those. Some of them might turn into things. Some might never amount to anything. That's the way it works. And then start talking to some other bands I know and see if they're interested in recording one of my songs.
Awesome. Well, let's definitely stay in touch. And if you start putting out stuff or you're going to be working with other people and you want to come on the show and talk about it, definitely text me or, hit me up on Facebook. I'd love to have you back on the show.
Terrific. I'll also suggest some other musicians and bands you will find interesting.
That'll work too, man. The ones you sent me the last time were awesome.
Yeah, I think Sal Baglio, was that correct?
Yeah, and I think Tom.
Okay, great.
Tom McNally.
Yeah.
Did you send me the Penetrators?
Yeah, actually. Now that you mention it, Jack Lipton.
Yeah, passed away.
He did, and Jack and I were talking about. Excuse me. We were talking about doing a duet with What Happened to the Rock and Roll.
Wow.
The lyrics were a little different when I first sent it his way, not majorly different. And he was interested because he related so much to what the song was about. And then it was trying to find time for him to go into there's a couple studios near him, and we were trying to get it set up. It didn't happen, obviously.
Wow. Yeah, he was a great guy. I enjoyed having him on the show along with Elliot.
Right.
Elliot was cool too.
Yeah.
Good guys. It's a shame what happened.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fun. I really enjoyed talking to you tonight. And like I said, I really love this album, and I'm looking forward to hearing some more great stuff. And when you put it out, definitely text me or message me. I'd love to have you back on.
Terrific. Well, I most certainly will keep you up to date on different things in music and so forth. I don't know if I want to do another novel. I wrote a novel, published it in, I think, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
That took several years of work. And it got great reviews, but if I sort of calculated, anyway. But that's it's funny because I thought, something is, songs are relatively quick to write. Writing novels takes a lot more time. So, but I don't know. Maybe I'll write another novel. Maybe I'll get back into it. My original plan was actually to do a series of them, 3, because they involve music and detectives. And the first one takes place in Memphis in 1956, wow. 1957, that era.
Mm-hmm.
And my plan was to do one. They each would be about 10 years apart. So the music would change. You'd be in a totally different, into the 60s and into the 70s, and different crimes and mysteries. The first one, everything in it is based on real things that happened and real characters that I bring into the movie, into the novel.
Wow.
That was called Descending Memphis. So that's on Amazon.
Oh, nice.
So it's sort of, it's like rockabilly, rock and roll kind of thing with a mystery.
I'm going to have to
But
order
anyhow,
that.
yeah, it's out there.
They have it in paperback, right?
It's in paperback, or people get Kindle as well.
Like I said, this has been fun, and let's stay in touch. I'd love to have you back on when you got something else going on, you know?
I love that. All right, Jim. Well, you have a great night.
You too.
And I will see you around.
All right, we'll talk soon, all right? And if I do that review, I'll send it your way, all right?
Please do. Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Lots of problems, and they follow me all around. I got lots of problems, and we go from town to town. It's always someone else's fault, like a shock of 220 volts. Like the time he did this and that, or when she made up that crap. I got lots of problems, and they follow me all around. I got lots of problems, and we go from town to town. I got lots of problems all day and all night. I got lots of problems, the whole world I will fight. It's the problems, they just come, it's the other guy. He's so dumb, it's the problems. I'm not to blame, it's the other guy. He's so lame, oh no. Oh yeah. Problems just happen. I didn't do anything. The whole world's against me, don't you see? I was just minding my own business. These things have nothing to do with me. It's always someone else's fault. Like a shock of 220 volts. Like the time he did this and that. She made a bad crap. I got lots of problems, and they follow me all around. I got lots of problems, and we're heading to your town. I got lots of problems all day and all night. I got lots of problems, the whole world I will fight.
The Record Machine Show is a weekly radio podcast produced by Jimmy Howell Productions. All rights reserved. For information regarding distribution or adding this podcast to your website, please visit our contact page at therecordmachineshow.com to submit your request. Thanks for listening. See you next time on The Record Machine Show.
The Record Machine Show.